All right. So, League of Legends and Riot are offering up to $100,000 to fix these two issues right here: DDoS on targeted individuals, and they get their IPs through their Riot ID, and then targeted in-game sessions. Basically, there's so many ways to combat this within logical super technology. One of them is hiding client IDs. The other one is finding individuals that are suspect for such activity, meaning they're commonly in a game where another person other than themselves disconnect, running a credit score. All right. If you run a credit score on every single person and other people are disconnecting commonly when you are playing, you can start to go to masked identities, basically where Riot and Vanguard put a fictional account into the game with a fictional IP address, and basically if you DDoS that offline, it doesn't do anything at all because it's fictional, but it is a real world IP address connected to like the FBI or Internet Crimes 3. But then the individual, basically all the individuals, every single person in the game, all 9 players, except for the people they invite themselves, right, that are on their team, are basically masked identities. If you go through this easily masked identity counter, this is a very easy counter that's very easily implementable with FBI and IC3's permission, and you could catch internet criminals this way very easily. Because if they do DDoS one of the false IPs, then you're basically DDoSing a trap, and you can actually backtrace and find who it is, who's doing it, right? Because it's set up specifically in order to find these people with high DDoS credit scores, right? Which is a bad thing, right? Now, I'm going to swap over to more super science ways. Now, people are not necessarily getting your IP off your Riot ID. They're not getting your IP through the game. They're not getting your IP through the server. They're actually getting their IP through espionage. They already know who you are, and they already know that you're going to play League, and they already know they're trying to stream snipe you with espionage. Not any kind of Twitch, not anything like that. I deal with this every single day. People are always trying to do this to me. Okay? They're always trying to get into the game that I'm playing. They're always trying to be next to me. They're always trying to either, grief me or do something weird, or just be weirdos in some way, shape, or form through real-world espionage, and just prove that they have, I have this infinitely powerful botnet. I know you're not streaming. You don't have proof of me being here, and blah, 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 blah. They do all this kind of weird stuff like that, right? And they try not to get caught. They don't talk about it, through the game or anything like that. They're not trying to get banned easily. So that being said, that being known, the next phase after that is actually what's called root shift communication. Basically, your game is creating a chaotic yet controlled and known encryption of its operation, redundant encryption of its operation, in order to speak within the graviton layers between the server and the host. All right. Now, this has to do a lot with resonant frequencies and figuring out long-range communication and quantum entanglement science, stuff like that. It's similar to quantum entanglement, except it's actually even more advanced, and it's going to take a lot of time. Some game developers are already hip to this, and it's called direct delivery to client. All right, direct delivery to client alternate root shift is where the resonant frequencies of your operation and everything that's kind of going on the client side is already extrapolated relative to micro order, non-conscious being, so it doesn't hit espionage clause, meaning the being isn't aware of your privacy or anything like that. It then creates a unique, infinitely non-parallel micro key, basically, and it communicates through the its own internet service provider. Now, if you lose internet connection, you can still continue to play the game for temporary periods of time up until discerning based off the operation. So the operating system is actually communicating backwards and forward through the actual internet service provider. Now, This is extremely advanced technology, and it's what we're going to need in order to combat this next phase of internet cheating. Basically, when an individual is watching the game, when it's booting up, when you start it, you actually are signing in, basically with your body in a way, with your mind, with your eyes, with everything like that. There are games that are already this advanced, that are already doing this. They're trying to uniquely isolate, and I would say games like Warframe and high security companies, even Trove, there are games that have extreme securities like this already, where they isolate the client to make sure that it's them. And it would be like a body multi-factor is basically the next level of the future in which you're going to need in order to get to the point of passing these exploiters, these hackers, just to stop DDoS, because DDoS is always going to be a possible problem when they have espionage. So if you're an internet terrorist, you have DDoS, and you have espionage, and you have internet service provider hostile takeover, what you have to do is you have to encryptively send packages through the ISP lower than its micro order. And the only way to do that is what I'm talking about right now, is to be your own ISP. You have to give them packages to create resonant, non-parallel, lower micro order communication networks between you and the server. That's the only way you can do it, because then you're not communicating through the internet service provider anymore. And the internet service provider is the person that's going to be getting shut down. And it's not only that, it's the server's internet service provider, the client's internet service provider. And then the next phase after that is basically pi squared theory. Pi squared is like our vision is bricked in a non-parallel way, and it's an infinity. And the client is not, it's not the issue. The client is an infinity itself. The game is a finite. And the game is distributing a finite to an infinity, right? So if you get closer to the infinity than the game's actual provider, and you get in between there, you can actually hack it. Now, the best distributors are trying to get the most infinity extrapolated of the pi squared theory. Pi squared is you, the person, the client. The game developer is trying to become the exact pi squared that you are, but it's an infinity, and you can't predict it perfectly. And if you do, then you're going to be a perfect developer, right? And that's the whole idea, is the internet terrorists, the hackers, are putting pi squared that are closer to the client's infinity than the hacker. The hacker is beating the finite developer. So these two things alone right now are client distributed, direct to client. You have to beat the hacker's infinity, basically. Now, targeted in-game session disconnection would be exactly the same thing as DDoS for the most part. You guys have to work on corruption. You have to work on anti-corruption. Blizzard has really good anti-corruption. Basically, when you hire a coder, you have two rooms. You have the good guy room and you have the bad guy room. And you just keep doing good guy room, bad guy room forever. And eventually, you got nothing but good guys at the top, and you got nothing but bad guys on the bottom. All right, and Blizzard is already doing this. If you aren't doing this, I already know that Riot has people that are in the infrastructure that are able to do, bypasses that are way too high. Like, there are rioters that can, basically, they make alternate accounts, and they kind of watch over their alternate accounts with their main accounts, and these are possibly even multi-avatarists that are running around and hacking players with their alt avatar and alt account, and then they're just siding with themselves, right, and going, the other person was hacking, right? So there's no tribunal about it. There's no evidence about it. There's just this one rioter is oh, I'm on the scene. This person's hacking, even though it's them hacking on the other team. So if you don't get the good guy, bad guy room, theory kind of figured out, and kind of infinity that, and make sure that you guys have no bad guys in your roster, then you're gonna always have a problem, because you're gonna get your own infrastructure is going to fall sample size people as hackers, and then you're going to have a bad time. Also, you should probably not go to shadow banning on every single instance. You should probably ban and pay attention really well to appeals, because, like, imagine this: I get framed for being a hacker by your corrupt employee, and then I appeal it, and you don't investigate it. Well, I'm just going to sit here without reparation ever. I'm just going to be banned forever, or I'm going to be shadow banned forever, right? And these two situations are terribly big, and you have to avoid them. So you have to pay it. You have to have like a humongous certainty on your appeals, and watch your appeals, and make sure that you have like a tribunal watching the games, because a lot of us can just watch the timeline light. We can LiDAR light and watch and investigate criminal activity, stuff like that, based off reasonable cause. So once an appeal happens, once a ban happens, tribunal is one of the best ways, because we can timeline police this kind of stuff with LiDAR. We can do it with biotech LiDAR too. Like, some of us are clarity, wizards. We can backtrace who initiated the cheat first, because some of us want to anti-cheat too. Some of us want to go, this guy's cheating, try and push that out of our way so we can have a normal experience again, and then we might get flagged as cheaters. Now, I don't try to do that personally, unless it's like right in my face and it's like, this is a cheat. I try and push it out of my way. But like, if the game is just going normal, I leave it alone, always. So people like me, like, I've played thousands of games, like tens of thousands of games maybe of League, and never cheated once. And I started getting cheated in the last couple of years super bad. Hacked every possible way you could ever imagine. Percentage hack. People are adding like 5% damage reduction, 5% damage output at all times. They're putting like 100% crit chance scripts on, toggling them on and off so they get higher crit chance, and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Every hack you can ever imagine. And it's all super engrossed through torrent gassed. Basically, they try and torrent the game and the client, and then become the server and internet service provider for the client in the ways I was just saying earlier, on the way to stop the DDoS, the biological technology way and the resonant frequency way, creating the resonant ISP, temporary ISP. And that eventually corrupts too, by the way, too. Like, if somebody snaps their fingers too much around the area, it'll stop the resonant frequency even. I mean, it's basically spell theology, and there's no such thing as perpetual motion, right? So the spell can only be as powerful as your micro order, right? And your redundancy mixed. Micro order and redundancies mixed create the longevity, and the longevity will fade. So you have to have internet connection and the resonant frequency at the same time with the root shift. The root communication shift is the mandatory one. It needs to go to the lower order, the lower micro order with more redundancies, and non-parallel to internet service provider, botnet provider, hacker provider kind of languages. So you have to just beat those. And here's another way how to do this really quickly, is you have to get to cell crafting in this theology. Basically, you need hundreds of coders or thousands of coders that are all working on cells of this theology. So then you can choose which cell to distribute to your client, and then you can isolate the hacker's languages based off of hacked-based credit scores. So like when a game gets flagged for hacking, basically you check the languages that are used and then the victim, which languages were used, and then you can triangulate and isolate the hacker. But anyway, OMG Bomber out. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Peace.